All righty. Hi, guys. Thank you for being here. I hope everyone is well. I hope everyone's hanging in. Franco, thank you for being here. I couldn't be more excited to have you on.
Oh, thank you so much, Ali. It really is an honor to be invited onto your show.
Well, I'm so looking forward to this. Just to give everyone context, I know Franco through a group meditation, and shout out to Jade DeCruz. She is the instructor of that. Yeah, it's a fabulous meditation. I will have the link to that in the description just in case anyone wants to take a look at it. But um, Franco also has a podcast very similar to mine, and um, I think this conversation is going to be fascinating. It's probably going to go in a number of different directions, but um, it will probably be a little bit less of an interview and more of a conversation and just chat about, everything that we're seeing around the world and kind of piece some things together because he, like me, has talked to a number of different people with all sorts of backgrounds that have really, really good insight and wisdom and advice on, just what's happening.
As you said, I talk about wealth creation and manifestation a lot in my professional work as a leadership coach to C-suite and entrepreneurial leaders. But yes, it was tech. So I, how did I get into that? Oh gosh, like how long have we got? But I'm not known for short answers, Ali, but I'll do my best to keep them concise. So I was born in the Seychelles, some tiny islands in the Indian Ocean, middle of nowhere near Mauritius.
Wow.
Um, and I lived there only till I was five. And then my mum and I moved to the UK, and everyone says, what on earth did you move there for? Well, you don't have much choice when you're 5 years old. And of course, everything's an adventure when you're a little kid. And we moved to one of the most beautiful parts. I mean, Britain is tiny, but we moved to one of the most beautiful parts of England within Great Britain, which is known as the UK Lake District. And I grew up there from the age of 5 to 18 when I left home. And so to have gone from one of the most beautiful places on the planet to one of the most beautiful places in the UK was incredible. And I always feel so grateful for that. And all I ever wanted to do as a kid was fly planes. And I think where that came from, well, it's actually something I found out recently. It's actually something deeper within my incarnational makeup from other lives and not this one. But as it happened, and this is clearly no accident, in that first 5 years where I lived in the Seychelles, we were right underneath one of the main flight paths to the airport, and it was literally like what, 3 miles away from the airport. So the planes would come in super low. And as a kid, I remember being fascinated by that, and I was like, "That's what I want to do." I got some really bad careers advice when I was 14.
Oh,
So my dream was shattered, and I was like, I really didn't know what to do with myself. So I just thought, I know, I'm just going to make money. Went to university, did a construction degree just because I wanted to make money, wasn't interested in it. Then decided the best thing to do with that was to get a job in in tech sales, as you do, because I just wanted to make a load of
yeah.
money. And because I had loads and loads of jobs as a little kid from the earliest age because, my parents never had a huge amount of money, but they worked hard and did what they could to provide for me and my brother and sister. And my mum in particular had such a hugely strong work ethic. And I think that really rubbed off on me because I was determined to, and I did receive some really love-like programming from them, as I think as we all do from our parents about
Yeah.
money and money does grows in trees. Like that, one of their favorites was like, who do you think I am, Liberace? For the older crew, you'll know who Liberace is. For the
Right.
younger crew, you might want to go look that up. And anyway, so I then decided to get into tech sales because I didn't know what to do with my life, so I thought I'll just make a load of money. Um, Turned out I was really good at sales. Very quickly went from that to a team leader, a sales manager. I went on to start my own IT company with a friend of mine, still chasing money. Eventually, that didn't work out because my business partner and I just didn't see eye to eye, went our separate ways. And then I had a property trading business, same thing again, just went chasing the money. Um, had a couple of little tech jobs after that, and then had a huge meltdown. Was like, oh, I'm gonna do with my life, like an early midlife crisis in my sort of mid 30s. And I'd heard this voice in my head to me before say, go be a coach. And I was like, who's going to listen to me? Because like I've just messed up in life. I've had loads of great success, but so much more failure. And I never realized that actually that's like one of the best qualifications to do that.
Wow.
And and then when I was 36, I really began to I got mugged in Buenos Aires when I was traveling. And that really opened the door to my awakening journey, which was absolutely planned. It was all part of the process. There's a big story behind that. And then so I ended up doing like inner leadership coaching for a couple of friends, and then one of them wanted to pay me, and it went on from there. And then that led to me really having a proper awakening when the universe delivered Joe Dispenza's book in early
Mm.
28, spring, summer 2018 is Becoming Supernatural. And just that absolutely floored me. I mean, that was my, excuse me, that was my real consciousness awakening in terms of beginning to realize that actually we're so much more than who we
Yeah.
think we are. But I'd had a real epiphany a few years before that in 2012 when I came across Sydney Banks's three principles, which I'm sure some of your listeners will know and will have heard of, which is basically understanding that we perceive everything through mind, consciousness, and thought, and that had a profound impact on me, and that led me to what I'm doing today.
I love it. I love it. I'm a huge fan of Joe Dispenza. Everything you've just said, yeah, it resonates through and through. It's funny how, you know, and there's a number of people kind of making a name for themselves through consciousness and all of that. But yeah, he's incredible. There's something about his delivery that just really draws me in. I can listen to him talk all day and yeah, it's once you read a book regarding consciousness or thought, it really does Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul is another one that comes to mind. It
Great
really
book.
there's certain books that will just flip everything on its head. You know, everything you thought was true, all of a sudden you're questioning all of it. Not even
Yeah,
questioning. I mean, it's really um well, I mean, you're questioning it, but also it that makes it sound almost combative or like you're resisting it when I say question, I mean more so explore and get excited about and let your mind go to a place of wonder. It's easy to do. Again, it's there's a lot to cover when you're talking
yeah.
about consciousness. I mean only everything, right?
Only everything. I mean, like, how many lifetimes have we got to talk
Yes.
about it, Ali? And I love I absolutely love, because I resonate with it so much, your handle of level-headed wild child, because very, very much growing up, I was very much like that. I was,
Yeah.
such a boundary pusher, a real troublemaker, because as a kid, I did question everything and I got slapped down very hard for
Yeah.
it. But at the same time, I still just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. I was like, I just had an inherent sense from the youngest age, what the hell is this place and what am
Yes.
I doing here?
Yes.
What am I doing here? I don't belong here. Not
Yes.
initially, it was because of some quite traumatic things that occurred during my early childhood and teenage. But underneath that, there was always a bigger sense of exactly that is what is this insane
Yes.
place and what am I doing here?
Yes.
It's never ever felt like home. And then I've realized in recent years that the reason that I've always felt like that is because I came here to do a job.
That's right.
Um, and this is not my natural home. And I think for many of us who are on this frequency and on this path of awakening, which is, as we've said off camera, is actually going inside, we come to realize that that's the case. I mean, one of my really closest friends, um, we have this ongoing joke where I'm like, did I really sign up for this? And she's like, come on, Franco, you came here to do a job, blah, blah, blah. I'm all in for it. I'm all in for it. And poor thing is going through a hell of a time at the moment. If you said to me for the first time this morning, yeah, I think I'm on side with what you've been saying, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
What is this place? But, we absolutely cannot truly appreciate the light until we face the darkest of the dark, because we live, this universe is built on duality. It's deliberately, and this solar system in particular is deliberately designed to illuminate shadow, and that's exactly what it does, and that's what we came here to work with, or not.
That's right. I love it. So yeah, let's get into that. Let's talk about all of that. I mean, there's a lot happening. It's call it whatever you want. There's a revolution taking place, an evolution taking place, an entire metamorphosis taking place. I mean, there's a lot going on. And I agree
Wild.
with you completely. We signed up for this. I know a lot of us are questioning why. But yeah, we're gonna I really truly, if we don't already know it, I think we're gonna know here soon.
Yeah. I keep
Why
getting the
why we
contract out, Ali, and going. I keep looking through the contract, going. I was like, oh yeah, I
this
did
can't
sign
be
it.
right.
I did sign it.
It's so true. And
Yeah.
it's just it is, especially there's ups and downs, and there are moments that feel really heavy, and it all depends too on um where you are, and I mean physically where you are on the planet, and then where you are just emotionally, and in terms of spiritual growth, and um understanding how to balance ego. And I mean, there's so much involved. We're all in different places, and it hits us at different times. And right now it's really interesting, um, because there's such extreme. I don't know how it is so much where you are, and I would love to talk about that. Here it feels, I don't want to say it feels divided like 50-50, but it feels divided in the sense of I think some people are feeling a lot of excitement right now, and I think some people are feeling a lot of fear. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that's primarily in the US or if that's going on all over. How is it where you are? What are you picking up on?
I got asked this question. It's such a good question, Ali. I got asked this by a guy that I interviewed about 6, 7 weeks ago called Matthew James Bailey, and he's a world expert on artificial intelligence, or technical intelligence, as I call it, and ethics. And he was asking me because he's from the UK originally, but he lives in the States and has done for a while. And his view was very much that in the USA, everybody's a lot more open-minded. Everyone's a lot more cognizant of the fact that we are going through this huge shift, because our mother planet, Sophia, her frequency is shifting. We're in a part of the galaxy at the moment where, and this is scientifically provable as well, where we're being bombarded with so much high frequency because of where we are in the galaxy right now, the section that we're spiraling through, that actually that is helping to uplift the frequency. Now, it would seem that when we look at the nut house that is called government in the World Health Organization, or nut houses, should I say, which for
Yes.
anyone, I don't know if that's just a UK term, but it basically means the crazy people.
Right. Yeah.
In the World Health Organization, the United Nations, the monetary funds, the central banks, the governments, the media, it looks like the whole world is going insane. But I'm very much of the view that that's actually the last thrashings of a dying consciousness, basically, where they're desperately trying to hang on to control. And so Matthew asked me, he said, what's it like in the UK at the moment? He's thinking about coming to do some events here. And he said, if there's not much of, if people are still really buried in it, because of course we've got this tyrannical, fascist, communist government led by Keir Starmer at the moment, who of course is just a puppet that does what he's told
Yeah.
by the World Health Organization and the central banks and the other people that control him, and the Rothschilds and the Club of Rome and all the other the Masonic lodges and all the other factions that control the world. And I said, actually, and I don't know if it's just because I tend to circulate more in areas where people are on a similar frequency to us or not, but I said to him, I said, I do think that people in this country are waking up, because there's a lot of podcasts out there that have started that are getting a lot of attention, UK-based ones, where people are showing the craziness of what's going on. I mean, even on a very basic level, like they've literally turned the whole of London into a massive surveillance state. There's cameras on every single street corner, supposedly for what they call the ultra low emissions zone. But that's actually just a smoke screen
Hmm.
for the 15-minute city. But there's been groups going around literally with metal cutting saws, cutting them down.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
and people can see what's going on, and the farmers are standing up. Excuse me. And there's a wonderful guy called Pete Stone who runs the Sovereign Group,
Hmm.
um, the Sovereign Project, where he's beginning to show people are beginning to listen to him at last, realizing that actually the reason that we're so enslaved is because we're ignorant of how the law, the maritime law that we live in, is set up. So here in the UK, to sort of, I know I'm sort of going to round the
You're
house's
good.
answer,
That's how it goes with this.
but here in the UK, and I'm probably a little bit tainted by the fact that I'm an eternal optimist. I genuinely think that people are waking up to what's going on, and even if they're not massively on conscious awakening journey, well, I guess they are to some degree, but they're actually lifting the head up above the parapet and realizing, hang on a minute, this is FUCKED what these people are doing,
Yes.
as in governments and control and everything. I mean, because I had some friends when there was a certain thing that happened, what, 5 years ago now, and about a year later, certain other things happened, medical procedures, shall we
Uh-huh.
say,
Hmm.
and I refused all that. I saw it for what it was. I could instinctively, I tuned in and just thought, I could feel a really dark, intense energy with all of this. And I watch wonderful people like Brian Rose, who had David Icke.
Yes.
um, that really, really, my eyes were like half open, and that really opened my eyes. And then I listened to loads of other people over time. And I had friends at the time who literally thought that I was dangerous. And they were, like, I don't even know if we can be friends anymore. I'm like, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. I'm not trying to put my opinion down your throat. Here's the information, do what you want with it. But what I invite you to do is feel it here, not in your head. Feel here whether or not it's true. Anyway, so they had all went off and had their jib jabs and whatnot. 2, 3 years later, they're coming back saying, "Do you know what, Franco? We made a huge mistake." I'm like, "Tell me more about that." We thought we were doing the right thing, blah, 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 but now we see what's going on, the consequences of that when you look at the yellow card system and the VA ERS system and it's even being reported in mainstream media now.
Hmm.
And I use that thing that happened. I'm conscious of not saying too much because of censorship on YouTube, but um, I use that as an example because people who are absolutely dyed in the wool programmed people that I knew 3 years later have actually woken up and gone, we wish we hadn't done it. And you must feel really smug now that you were right. I went, no, I just feel really sad that so many people have injured themselves by taking the procedure, falling for all the nonsense that happened at the time. But that does indicate to me that in the UK, generally, Ali, people are thankfully beginning to truly wake up. I mean, it's obviously to degrees, and clearly you're always going to have people who are just like, I will do what I will do as I'm told because the government's always right. Fair enough, but yeah,
Yeah.
I do feel there's definitely the zeitgeist is changing here.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think there's I love that you brought that up because I think there are a lot of things that will in terms of energy maybe repeat themselves for lessons to be learned. Like I'm not saying there's necessarily going to be another vaccine put out tomorrow that um, will hurt people. But I think there are I think it's important to take the lessons from COVID and keep those in mind. Just in terms of us not giving our power away to an external authority and really going within and trusting our guts at any given moment over anything, whether it's an injection or a policy or what, I mean, whatever. Like truly,
Mm.
I think we are learning that. And for some of us um it's a longer process to learn it, or it will just look different in terms of how that good comes about. But I do think one of the biggest things that we're learning right now is our own, and remembering, really that's what it is. It's not learning, it's remembering who we are and the power that we hold within ourselves, and where we come from, and the unity, consciousness, and energy and source that we are all we're it's all connected, it's all one thing, and it's all within us.
100%, sister. 100%.
Yeah. So learning that has been fascinating for myself, I know personally, and just, in terms of watching it on a collective level. I've been saying for years that I think this is the most exciting time to be alive, and it's hard. Are it's got its challenges. And I
For
do
sure.
think we're right in the heart of that right now. I think 2025 is going to be difficult. I think 2024, and it's only going to continue into 25, where we are just, I think, so much information is going to come forward in terms of what we have been told that isn't necessarily true. That isn't true. Flat out lies. I think the truth is
Yeah.
slowly being uh it's slowly coming into service. And I know a lot of people are feeling kind of shocked and overwhelmed and excited about what we've already seen come forward. But I think it's just the beginning. I don't think we have, and I think it's hard for us to really wrap our minds around how deep some of the corruption has how deep it is and how long it's gone on.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot I think our feelings are really going to come online. Those of us who, tend to push our feelings aside and don't want to deal with them, I think they're being forced. Our feelings are rising for a reason. It's helping us see, and helping us learn. And I think it's important. Something I wanted to touch on in general is that I think it's important to really give ourselves grace and each other grace in terms of um, what we have allowed ourselves to believe and just go along with. That can be, it can stir up a lot of frustration, a lot of anger. Um, you feeling like feeling like you got duped is never a good feeling. And I know we talk about a lot of the things that have come up recently in terms of, COVID being one of them. I think there's a lot of things where our pride gets in the way, and we think, well, I was right about this, you were wrong about that. And I think we're going to realize that all of us have been duped for a very long time. And if we can get to a place of understanding that that needed to happen for a reason, if we can look at those things in its entirety and be appreciative for the things that it's taught us, I think we'll be able to move forward a lot more quickly. If we get caught up in the anger, and if it turns into us, feeling revengeful or resentment, or you know what I mean, I think that sort of thing will only delay, you know, the changes that are to come. I also think it will keep you on a lower timeline versus a higher timeline. And I do think that there are very much, I think we are looking at I mean, what's going to happen is going to happen, but I think in terms of it being as smooth as possible for any one individual, it's important to keep in mind that there are higher and lower timelines, and if you want this to be as smooth as possible, I think it's important to show yourself grace, show other grace, and just stay in a place of love as much as you can. Would you agree with that? And if so, is there any advice or anything that you have on the best way to do that, to stay in a place of love and out of fear?
100%, Ali. I cannot agree with what you shared more. You're so right. I was interviewing a really fascinating guy last night called George Kavasilas, who is one of those people who is very connected to his former lives, his former incarnations, can connect out of the realm very, very easily. And I don't know, he wouldn't describe himself as an ascended master, but basically he has that level of ability. And I've actually worked
Oh.
with him for about 6 months on a couple of his group programs. And I interviewed him last night, and a part of our conversation was everybody going back to the piece you were saying about us being angry that we've been duped. Anybody who's alive on this planet is experiencing Stockholm syndrome.
Yes.
And if anyone doesn't know what that is, it was basically in Sweden, in Stockholm. I don't remember when it was, the 70s or 80s, I think. It was a hostage situation. And what happened was the hostage takers were so lovely to the people that they took hostage that when they came out, they wouldn't testify against them. And so basically, when people defend their captors, it's become known as Stockholm syndrome. The thing is, every single one of us is experiencing that in this world that we live in. I mean, for example, many years ago, I used to honestly believe that the news told us the truth, the media told us the truth. How naive, eh?
Mm.
So that's one example. I believed that elections were fair and the democracy was fair and it was a real thing. Utter nonsense. It really they're selections, not elections, for anybody who has any doubt about that.
Yes,
These people are groomed from childhood, even before they're born,
that's
to sit in the White House or sit in number 10 Downing Street or sit in Parliament houses all over the world. And so what I've done over the last 6 years is worked really deeply and intensely and unwound so much pain and trauma, which Jade has been such a wonderful help with. Um, since she first did a what was it was it an Akashic? I think it was an Akashic Records reading for me 3 years ago, which really transformed the direction of my life. I'm so grateful to her for that because there was so much powerful truth in that. But that
Mm.
was really, I would say, the beginning of the deep, deep, deep work where 2022 for me was just nothing but pain, more crying, even more pain, even more crying. But it was the letting go. And a
Mm.
big part of that was this Stockholm syndrome. But that said, anyone who's alive on a small level, even if you work on the big stuff, like the big things that I just mentioned, there's little things every day, like even like using this thing
Yes.
consistently. It's Stockholm syndrome because it's designed to take me away from who and what I truly am. It's a spying device at the same time, as we all know. So I've labored that point because I want everyone to be kind to themselves because, yes, it can be frustrating to think that, oh, how did I get duped for that? Well, you were born into it. We were all born into 99.99999% of us were born into families that were totally asleep. And we grew up in societies and environments that were totally asleep and designed to program us. And what we've got to remember is we aren't just, excuse me, undoing as the old age just finishes and we go into the new age. Was it 20? I can never remember the figure. Is it 26,000 years of the
26.
old age is just finished, and we're just about to go into the new age. What we've got to, and I don't mean new age as in the new age, I mean this new era.
Right.
Um, what we've got to remember is that it's not just how we've been programmed since we were born, since the Second World War, the First World War, or even going back to the Roman times. this indoctrination and this suppression of our true light and who and what we truly are has been going on for hundreds of thousands of years because our human form has been genetically manipulated, degraded, hybridized. So actually, we're the aliens because these beautiful vessels that we walk around in, that our consciousness and our souls exist in, because it's the only thing that can contain the incredible light and high frequency of our souls down in this frequency. Unfortunately, our forms have been manipulated for hundreds of thousands of years. So we've kind of got to be kind to ourselves and put things into context and realize that whilst it's not our fault that this has happened to us, before we incarnated, we knew the deal and we chose to come here and we chose to do what we needed to do next on our healing process and our process of remembering and reconnecting with who we are and undoing all the trauma that doesn't just come from this life, but comes from past generations as well. But in terms of looking forward, I mean, the first thing is to be kind to ourselves, but because we can't help what's happened to us, but we can help what happens next.
Mm.
And that's where we need to take radical self-responsibility for who and what we are, for the mistakes that we've made, for the trauma that we're still carrying, and just heal that because there are loads and loads of dark, archonic, energetic entities around us. I mean, we see is it 0.003 of the known energy spectrum, and that's the known energy spectrum. So we're effectively blind. So there is loads of there's an infinite amount of energy in this room, yet my senses can only see a tiny bit of it in the electromagnetic light spectrum. And that in and of itself is just such a small part. And so if we don't heal those traumas and those wounds, it's basically a free lunch for these archonic energies who will come in and parasite off that. That is why we live in a world of gloom, doom, bad news, war, awful rape, terror, sexual assault, human trafficking, famine, you name it. It's all been engineered that way to create what Robert Monroe called loosh,
Mm.
which is basically the siphoning of energy. We're a food source for these low vibrational entities. And that's why we have to do the healing, because if we don't, we're constantly being siphoned for energy. But the other side to that as well is people often say to me, well, what am I supposed to do? I can't control the world. One person's not going to do anything. Well, you're absolutely right. But you've got to remember what a powerful, immortal creator being you are, having a brief human experience, as David Icke says. I love that expression of his, because we are literally the manifestors and creators of our own reality. So what happens is if we start healing ourselves, we start healing our trauma, which then allows us to feel much more empathy and compassion and love for other people, even people who are doing shitty things. We might not agree with it and it might not be okay, but we have the empathy to realize that person is acting from a place of wounding and trauma, because if they were connected to their heart and in a place of peace and love, there's no way they would do that. Now, again, it doesn't excuse the behavior, but it's important to understand why they're doing that. The more we do that, the more we project love, empathy, and compassion into what Rupert Sheldrake calls the morphogenic field. And that's basically an element of the collective human consciousness. So we don't just exist individually as Ali, Franco, Jade, that we've mentioned, and the other 8 billion people that are on this planet. We exist as a consciousness collective. There is one human consciousness generated within this planet. And you might think, well, that's ridiculous. Well, hang on a minute. What are we made of? There's this consciousness awareness called Franco, well, this ego awareness called Franco, where my soul resides in. But I have a finger, I've got internal organs, I've got billions and billions of atoms, molecules, neurons, organs that all live together to create one single conscious entity that has an ego construct as Franco Demori. And that metaphor is exactly the same for the collective human consciousness. So moving forward, this is why it's so important that we realize that the people that control the world, excuse me, are actually desperately seeking love themselves.
Mm.
But the way that they're doing that is from a place of manic control and a complete, because they can't find love within themselves. The only way they can try and feel that within themselves is through power and control and manipulation. Now, we don't accept it, and we certainly don't excuse it. Even just knowing that allows us to be so much more connected to our own power. And what was his name? Maharishi did that experiment, didn't he? The meditation experiment, where he showed unequivocally that, was it 200 people meditating together, something like that, created way more than 200 times the effect. And the same is true for us. As we raise our frequency within ourselves, it adds to the collective field. And then what we do is we then surround ourselves and connect ourselves with other people on that same frequency. And the universe looks down and goes, oh, there's a high vibe frequency there. Let me bring another high vibe frequency towards you. And I cannot tell you how much that has unfolded in my life. And I imagine the same is true for you, Ali. But in terms of the timeline thing, which I just want to finish up on, you're absolutely right, because George, who I was speaking interviewed last night, and I've heard a few other people who are connected to that the non-human elements of their greater beings, higher selves, whatever you want to call it. The general consensus is there will be this. There is a timeline split. As you said, Ali, 2025 is probably going to get even worse and even crazier, and probably even into next year and even the year after as well. But what all these people are saying is, as long as we stay connected to our hearts and get the popcorn out and see it for the show that it is,
Yeah.
and realize that we're so much more than the craziness that's going on down here.
Yes.
Then the other side of that is the most beautiful ascension in frequency. But ascension actually means going really back into love. And I feel as well there actually is going to be a timeline shift at some point where
Agreed.
those of us who are on this frequency are going to move into that time. Like how it's actually going to unfold and look, I've no idea, but it'll just be a felt thing. Some people aren't going to make it. Some people are going to fall for the God Savior thing because the nutters are going to try and do fake alien invasion or the second coming of Christ, which is being planned at the moment. The craziness that's going on in Israel at the moment is a fundamental part of that and what they're trying to do to build out the greater Israel by consuming Palestine, Syria, Jordan. And some people will go down that timeline. Some people won't make it. And some people will actually be moving into this higher frequency because they're doing the work, because they're being in love, because what we're doing is taking away all of the things that keep us disconnected from who we are. It's not a place to get to. It's actually process of subtraction, taking away all the things that have kept us disconnected from what has always been here, which is our infinite, immortal creator being selves having this brief human experience.
I couldn't agree more. I love how you said it's the subtracting. It really is. It's the purging, it's the cleansing. It's what really helped me see who I was losing everything I thought I was. With,
Yeah,
all these things that you identify as or with, um, once those are stripped away and you're just left with yourself, you really do see it for what it is. Um, which I think that in itself is fascinating. And I think again, that's going to come for people in different ways. Sometimes it's the loss of a job, the title that they held their whole life that is suddenly gone. And now it's like, well, if I'm not a CEO, then what am I? Or
yeah,
the loss of whatever. I mean, it could be a number of different things, but I do think the things that we identify as I am X, Y, and Z, I am blah, blah, blah. Those are the things that I think are being stirred up. I think we're going to get to a point where we realize that I am is it. I
that's all
am
it needs to
full
be.
stop.
I am.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's really exciting. It really is. That's something I wanted to ask you about for sure. Something I'm super excited about is, well, I think just the unity consciousness. I think we're going to really understand that Gaia has its own consciousness, that all things, animals, I think we're going to, I love animals. Love them, love them, love them. Always have. I think we're going to have a whole new understanding of them, of plants, of all of it. So, that's one of my big things is just seeing liberation for so many things. Animals being a big one for me. I'm also so excited about the poles are shifting. A lot of people aren't aware of this. Some people are, but the North Pole is already closer to Siberia than it was before. So that's a very real thing. Um, I think some of the weather that we're seeing, um, yes, there is cloud seeding going on, but I think actually a lot more of it is actually these poles that are shifting and we just aren't realizing it. But I do think that there's going to be an emergence of landmass. And I don't think it's going to come overnight. I think it's going to take some time. But I think we're going to start to see, I think our history, past civilizations, I think we're going to look at and understand in a whole new way. So I'm super, super excited about that. And I'm just curious, what are some of the things that you are just like, I can't wait to see this?
Oh, wow. Where do we start with that one? Such a good question, Ollie. I think one of the things that I really want to emphasize was one of the points you just mentioned is that we spend so much of our time propping up these identities of who we think we are. You know, you said the CEO example there. And what I've come to realize is that actually doing the work is so much easier in the long time than propping up an ego, because propping up an ego is like giving yourself a second and third full-time job on top of whatever it is you do during the day as well. And I find that I find it fascinating that people can't see that sometimes. The path of least resistance is all right, so it's going to be more painful in the short term and more intense in the short term. But as people who've done the work, and I'm sure you'll agree, it's so much easier in the long run to come back to self and to reconnect and not to just float around with your head in the clouds, although that can be fun at times. But we make life so difficult for ourselves
Mm.
unnecessarily, all for the sake of propping up ridiculous egos, because again, that's how we've been conditioned. But I would urge anyone who feels any sense of truth in that to really have a look at what that means in terms of the implications for you and your life and how you show up. But to answer your question, Ollie, in terms of what am I looking forward to? Oh, wow. I mean, you said there about new ways of reconnecting with plants and nature and animals, but actually, those new ways are actually the true
Oh,
ways that we
yeah.
used to be, aren't they?
Yes. Yes.
That's how before we got interfered with, because before we got so disconnected from our natural environment by design, obviously, even just in the last couple of 100 years since the Industrial Revolution started in particular, um, that's how we used to be. We were telepathic. We were able to connect with, speak to trees energetically, speak to the land energetically, speak to other animals energetically. And we actually, all of us, still have that capacity within us, but we're so busy in our mental construct that it, it's like a tiny pinprick of light in a dark universe. But we do still all have that capacity. I'm looking forward to free energy tech. I'm looking
Mm.
forward to anti-gravity vehicles. I'm looking forward to the letting go of the money system in particular. Now, I was always looking forward to this Star Trek future where civilization was based on contribution, but that is actually still based on conflict. But I think more than anything, just returning back to the magic of who and what we truly are, which is being able to work with our psionic powers of telekinesis, bilocation, teleportation, telepathy, even people, I mean, you know, there are yogis, weren't there, in the 60s and 70s that could literally manifest things just from their hands
Yes.
using the power of creation. It's for me, it's about going back to that life of pure connection with ourselves, with each other. And whilst Earth is a project in individualization and the expression of free will, but nonetheless, I am so looking forward to going back to that interconnection of everyone and everything and being able to go and travel the stars just like that because the technology is already here to do that and has been for many, 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 many decades. So yeah, I think, oh God, there's so many things, but
I
yeah, I
know.
think if I was gonna pick one, I think it's that inner world of
Yeah.
being able to really connect with and use our psionic abilities.
Absolutely. And it's you're so right. It's so true. There's so many because as soon as you brought up telepathy and free energy, like I'm right there with you. Free energy is huge and it's something I bring up quite often on the podcast because it's like I I know we've got the technology and I know it's coming and um it changes everything. I'm also a huge fan of Nikola Tesla, huge. And I I'm just excited to for people to really learn about because when we think of Tesla, we think of the car now. You know what I mean? That name's just been turned into
Hijacked.
yeah, hijack, thank you. Yeah. And yeah, I think he had an incredible mind. He had an amazing heart. I mean, he 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 went through some things and uh was stepped on quite a bit. And he just never gave up. He just kept pushing through and um he didn't really make it big because a lot of his ideas were either squashed or stolen. And I mean, he had a hard life. And um I just we need to have a national holiday for him or something. I don't know. I'm a huge fan
Yeah,
of him and I'm just excited to see us learn more about him and start utilizing the things that he tried to give to us, you know, so long ago that we didn't really fully um take advantage of. I think a lot of it has to do with, again, corruption and control and all of that.
absolutely.
But yeah, I'm just so excited about free energy for sure. Telepathy, I think, I mean, even how Tesla got his ideas, got his information, a lot of it came through dreams and downloads. And I mean, I'm such a fan. I'm such a fan. He created incredible things, and the way he was able to do it, it was all from what everything we're talking about, going within, having faith, you know, getting rid of false belief. I mean, everything. He like sums up all of it. And telepathy in particular. I don't know, have you heard of the telepathy tapes? It's a
No.
podcast. Google it when we get off of here. In fact, everyone
Yeah.
listening, I'll put it in the description as well. Incredible, incredible. There's a doctor um, Powell, Dr. Diane Powell. She's a genius. Her parents were also like mathematicians and like math wizards, like just genius. And she has been doing work with primarily with nonverbal autistic kids. But now the work has ventured into a number of different areas. But basically, she's proving telepathy. It started off with nonverbal autistic kids working with their the telepathy between them and their mothers, and now it's expanded into all sorts of things. I think the telepathy tapes alone, I think that podcast alone is really going to kind of give us a little kickstart in that direction to us really understanding consciousness,
Yeah. Well,
our capabilities.
the thing is, Ali, everybody's experienced it. Everybody, because
Everyone,
it
yes.
always happened. It always happens to me. Like my mum and I, maybe not so much these days, but because her cognition's not nearly as good as it was because she's in her late 70s and she's not so well. And it's funny because we had a very difficult relationship, but we were still very, very close at the same time. And so many times growing up, our telepathic connection was unbelievable.
Yes.
And then I've always experienced it with partners that I've been really, really, really close to, where you go to pick up the phone to text them something and it's something obscure. There's a text straight from them. You go to ring them, they're there. I'm like, what? What? How did that happen? I mean, it happened to me just the other day. I was thinking some random thought. I was around at my partner's house and I was thinking some random thought. And in the instant I was thinking it, she said it, and I was just like, well, I
Mm.
won't repeat what I said, but I was like, what? She's like, what? I went, you're not going to believe this. And it was that. But it's happened the other way around, that I've said something randomly that she's picked up on. So yeah, it's crazy. But I'm gonna have to
Yes, I
finish
was just
because
gonna say, do you have to go? I
I
see.
have to leave the meeting room. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're all good. Well, you're amazing. You're amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. I can't
thank
thank you
you.
enough. Truly. Franco, this was awesome. I would love
Yeah,
to have you back on for sure.
I would love to. Been an
Thank
absolute
you
honor.
so
Thank you
much.
so
Yeah.
much, Ali. Thank you,
Thank
everybody who
you,
just watched.
Franco. Thank you.
Yeah, and I look forward to our chat in a few months' time. Much love.
Absolutely. Thank you.